welcome to Debunked, where we discuss healthcare news with a healthy dose of skepticism. I am Arundhati Parmar, Editor-in-Chief of MedCity News, where we cover innovation in healthcare.
And I'm Samir Batra. I'm the founder and managing partner of HIP. We're an opportunistic healthcare venture firm.
So we're taking a little bit of a risk today. We typically discuss healthcare news, M&As, right? Hospital M&As, what's happening, Supreme Court decisions that have an effect on healthcare. But today, given the national and political earthquakes we have witnessed over the last 2 weeks, so we're going to be discussing what we feel, what we see, what we hear as two regular Americans. So I have to start with the assassination attempt on former President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th. I say this as someone who mostly finds Mr. Trump's personality and rhetoric largely objectionable. I feel like I have to give him grudging respect for how he reacted when he felt something in his ear. And he essentially dropped down and then stood up again. The way he stood up with like blood streaking on the side of his face, and then he just raised his fist up and said, "Fight, fight, fight." I don't think an average person would react quite like that. It is an iconic moment. Will go down in history for sure. And an average person, me for instance, heck, I would duck underneath the Secret Service and run into my bulletproof car and get the heck out of there. I would not be raising my fist. So I definitely felt a ton of respect. Now talking about the shooter, very interesting situation, right? There is no clear motive. FBI is of course still investigating. What they found is he was registered Republican, but he had donated like 15 or 25 bucks, I forget which, to a Democratic cause. So there is no evidence yet that he had any special dislike for Mr. Trump. What they found was that he had searched online for how close Kennedy's shooter was.
Wow.
He had also searched online about information for this recent attempted murder of Slovakia's Prime Minister. So it looks like, I mean, I'm completely speculating here just as anyone else. It looks like he was motivated less by political ideology and more by need for instant infamy. And I think that poses a real problem for America. How do we prevent white, disaffected youth from feeling so isolated and so invisible that they feel that the only way to be seen is to commit a heinous act? I don't know, Samir. It just cut to the core. I mean, I feel that we have a large, mental health crisis. We have a sort of gun crisis in the U.S. I wish we could do something about both.
Wasn't the kid bullied in school, or didn't he threaten to shoot up the school or something? Or was that sort of...
that was the initial report, but apparently I researched a little bit. The school came out and said and clarified that no, there is no record of him being bullied in school. They also said that yes, there was a separate incident regarding a threat to the school, but it was unrelated to the shooter. I feel like I have to go back to that idea of that isolation and that causal link between isolation, dissociation from your current environment, and mental health, and then easy access to an assault weapon.
Yeah, so I guess we are going to turn it back to healthcare. Maybe we can for a second, right? Let's talk about mental health and I'm going to talk about it from a kid's perspective and from an adult perspective. I'm going to start with sort of the adolescents and kids, and then I'm going to go into some stats. So to me, just to kind of make a comment that I'm going to come back to, I think technology has a huge part to play in here. The over-reliance on screens, and even schools, to the point, deferring to like letting the screens teach the kids, right? And so we're going to come back to that. But Mental Health America, which is sort of one of these, reporting sites, nonprofit sites, and they showed that the suicide rate, right, in this country was declining in 2019 and 2020, but in 2022 it went up, right? Okay, so maybe a little bit had to do with COVID, I'm sure, and other things, but but here's some deeper sort of statistics as well. And it sort of highlights, again, the mental health topic that we discuss, and so many startups are built in this space, and we had all this explosion of investment that happened in the space as well. So the same site quotes from a report that 1 out of 4 adults with frequent mental distress could not see a doctor due to cost. Right? So that's freaking 25%.
Right.
So that's a huge number. These stats were just jumping out at me. Right? 64% of uninsured adults, they say that they can't afford insurance. Right? But if you break that number down even more, over 10% said that have insurance, they said there's no coverage for mental health. So I'm sitting here going, every single time, I'm going to relate it back to our gun issue, if you want to call it. Every single time this happens, we end up finding out there's some mental health disorder, there's some issue, the kid was isolated, or the adult was isolated, he was bullied, not bullied, cyberbullied, no, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It always comes back, and then what's the underlying cause of all that? It's mental health. So then when you hear stats like this, it doesn't really build a lot of encouragement. Right. And now, another stat, there's 340 people per every one mental health provider in the US. And actually that number, I think, is not stated properly either, because it doesn't take into account those professionals who are no longer practicing or who are not taking appointments. Right. So that number is probably like 400 or 500 maybe even more. Right. So again, there's an opportunity where technology is supposed to come in and help bridge the gap. But now I'm going to sort of come back to, the whole impact, especially from an adolescent's perspective, on this screens issue. I think this is something that, we sometimes talk about, well, is it really a mental health issue? Is it not? Overuse of screen. My kids, I have kids, you have kids. My God, my constant battle at home is just trying to get them off the screens.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh my God, can I get you off the screens? Whatever happened to interpersonal communication, right? Throw that stuff away, set it aside, learn to communicate, right? And I think schools are also just giving in. I don't know if they've just lost the battle or they're just like, you know what, forget it. But everything that's coming out, they're giving them screens, they're allowing screens, everything is happening on the screens. Heck, they don't even know how to write papers anymore. Right. And then let's not even talk about it. I'm not going to touch it. I have to say the word because, can't have a conversation without saying the word AI. Okay, so here's our AI comment of the day, right? And then AI, right? Now you got ChatGPT and you got all these generative AI tools. Heck, they can just write the essays for you. Actually, this latest Meta ad, I don't know if you saw, there's a Meta ad that's been playing during Olympics, and it's just showing about Meta AI and all this sort of stuff. I mean, Meta's earnings just came out as well, and one of the ads is this probably early young adult is sitting in, she's riding a bus and she has her screen open and she has all these notes and she looks like a student and she goes, hey, whatever they call Meta AI, hey, summarize this for me. Right? So boom. There you go again. Yeah. Right? So now I can just basically call the AI. It's almost like when spreadsheets were born, we forgot how to do mathematics because hell, shit, you can just throw it into Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel and it'll just calculate it for you. Right? Even for us, we had calculators, but before we had calculators, we had to learn how to do it on paper. We had to make those lines on the graph paper and do all that. They're not learning like that anymore. Right. So, and I'm not saying that reliance on technology is not a positive thing, but I think what we're doing is we're losing the ability to communicate, and the over-reliance on technology is causing this isolation because you don't need anybody, right? You don't need humans. Right. Let me just sit here and let me just use my technology. So last thing, Yale Medicine did a study, and teens between the ages of 12 to 15 years old that were on social media for 3 hours, twice as much risk for having negative mental health outcomes such as depression and anxiety. I mean, the facts are here. Yeah. Right? And what I would say is, parents have to play a big role. The same battle happens in my house. In summer, can I say I hate summer? It's the best weather, but it is terrible as a parent to deal with kids that are on screens. What we have done is
actually play board games.
Yeah.
So we have to put away our own screens to be able to do that. And I think we blame the kids, but many times we as adults are addicted to,
for sure.
To our phones and our devices and our WhatsApp messages and our YouTube shorts. So I think we ourselves need to wean ourselves off of it, and then we can engage with our children. Two good games for anyone who wants to play.
Yeah.
My kids came up with these Clue and code names.
Okay.
They're kind of fun.
Code names are great. Yeah.
But let's come back to you address the mental health situation, and that there is some technology to blame, and then I'm talking about how the family plays a role. And I agree, school needs to play a role too.
Right.
But then there is the access to guns, and my husband, who is not as liberal, I guess, as I am, he has often told me that I totally do not understand gun culture in the U.S. And he works in agri-tech, and he has visited farmers in Iowa and other Midwestern states, and even here in California and in Washington. And he explains that folks in these parts are supremely gracious, fiercely independent, and the gun culture fits seamlessly into that idea of independence and self-reliance. They enjoy hunting, and he just feels that I'm a product of urbanity, and I'm so urbane, I'm such a West Coast elite that I absolutely do not understand that attraction to guns. And I've told him that, I understand the hunting concept.
Sure.
Even though, I eat chicken, I eat beef, I eat everything. Of course, someone's killing it for me. So I have no issues with hunting per se. But then in hunting, you don't need access to assault rifles, assault weapons, right? Because from my layman's understanding, the assault rifles or weapons will tear the flesh horribly. You can't really, use them for hunting. So I don't know. I feel like laws need to change, but I don't know exactly how. A battle has been raging on this for ages in our country, right?
Yeah, the your tearing the flesh comment was very apropos, because honestly, right, like when you do talk to those, I went to school in the Midwest too, right, in a farm town, and so they have guns, but they're not going hunting with an AK-47. That's not hunting,
right?
Like the truest hunters would be like, oh, that's not hunting,
right?
So that whole claim of like semi-automatic and assault, like that doesn't fit those. I feel like those folks would not sit there and say, yeah, no, I still need my AK-47, right? They're not sitting there saying they want their AK-47. I don't know, maybe not, but because you can't wrap all that stuff into one,
right?
But again, talking about research about all this sort of stuff. Population growth assault weapons ban in '99, right? Which expired in 2004.
Right, not '99. I think it was early '90s.
Early '90s. Sorry, not '99. Yeah, because I'm like, wow, that's only 5 years.
Yeah. It's been longer than that. It was longer than that. So
data show that there wasn't much decrease in the number of shootings.
In mass shootings.
In mass shootings, right?
Correct.
So now there is research that is coming out, and I think you and I talked about this too, of people getting more injured and hurt since the ban has expired.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe it is high capacity magazines or assault weapons or semi-automatic. But here's the thing, let's just talk a little bit about gun control and gun laws. Again, this is not a political stand. I don't really, I'm not a gun carrier, right? So I'm not, but I'm not opposing it. I'm just sort of stating facts, right? And I just want people to think.
Right.
So gun laws, right? So my biggest thing with this is, and we've talked about this before, it's like the same thing with cybersecurity. When something happens, we talk about it.
Right.
And then it dies out.
Right.
And then we just don't talk about it. So every time it's an election year, gun control shows up, abortion shows up. All these topics just come back up.
True.
Now, of course, this time it had some tie to like former President Trump being almost shot. Right. So again, it's become a big topic.
Yeah.
But I mean, we are in a society that we're probably one of the only major Western societies that has loose gun laws across the country, right? And the states have obviously a lot of power to it. 13 states allow open carry, right? So, and the loosest gun laws, again, like I'm not picking on states because, you know, the last time I supposedly picked on Idaho.
You did.
Mississippi, I'm not picking on you, okay? But you do have the loosest gun laws, okay? And it's not shocking that you also have the highest gun death rate. Again, these are facts. Loosest gun law, highest gun death rate.
Right,
okay?
right.
And the opposite is two of the hardest states to get a gun, Hawaii and California.
Right.
Honestly, if you're in Hawaii and California, you're just happy. You don't want to shoot people. Right?
No, jeez.
No, I'm kidding. No.
Don't listen
No,
to
I'm
him
kidding.
here. Come
Okay.
on.
But California has the 7th lowest gun death rate. Is one of the most populated states.
So this is per capita?
States. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Okay. So lowest gun death rate, death rate by gun, and it's and one of the hardest to get a gun.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's only 10 states and the District of Columbia that has a ban on semi-automatic guns. Of course, California is in that 10 states.
Right.
Actually, all the states in it, they're all blue states. Okay. So anyway, so that's my, you know,
So
stand
basically,
on gun control or gun laws.
that sort of segues into the idea that for these sorts of laws to become more widespread, you know, laws need to change. For laws, if laws need to change, elections have to happen a certain way.
Yeah.
And of course, that fits in very well with our next political earthquake that happened in the last 2-3 weeks, with President Biden deciding to withdraw from the 2024 election cycle. Kamala Harris is basically coasting towards becoming the Democratic presumptive nominee. I remember very clearly what I was doing the day I heard the news. What were you doing, and what was your take when you heard that Biden was sort of stepping down from this last race of his life, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know what I was doing.
Oh.
I don't remember, but I mean, I was not shocked or surprised.
Okay.
Right? And I think, honestly, if anybody saw the debate, and then after the debate saw his address at the G7 summit, oh boy, right? So, I mean, I know was declared fit to be living by his physician, okay?
Did they really say that? Declared fit to be living? That doesn't sound right.
It's mine. That's why I did air quotes.
Yes, okay.
Living, right?
Yes.
So, and then running, but you know, but I don't know, is that enough for you to be taking on a presidential campaign and then running the country for 4 years?
Absolutely
okay,
agreed.
That's like me going to a doctor. Okay, here we go. This is me going to a doctor and the doctor saying, hey, guess what? You're fit to live. And then I turn around and go, great, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what this is. It's the equivalency in the difficulty of this. It's like, okay, you're fit. You're good, right? You are not going to die tomorrow.
Okay.
But does that mean that it qualifies you to run for president? And then we're seeing all these things come out where the people are questioning your mental health. Fine, the competitors were doing it. But then, like, your own party is doing it. People inside your inner circle are doing it.
Right.
So, I mean, honestly, it was not a shock. It was like, dude, honestly, they should have done this like 6 to 9 months ago.
Agreed. Okay. A year ago.
Here's always like, look, take a page out of startup world, okay?
Yeah.
You launch your startup in stealth mode.
Yeah.
Okay? So they should have been in stealth mode for 6 to 9 months, and then they should have picked their time, right? Maybe, I don't know, weeks before the debate, and be like, oh, guess what? You ain't going to debate Biden. You're going to debate her or debate him
No.
or whatever it is. No, but my point
This is not a...
my point is, you really?
No.
I mean, look at this. Now we have like less than 3 months, and now you're trying to pick a candidate. My point is, 6 to 9 months of preparation could have happened, and you could have given this person a little bit more time to prepare.
Well,
right?
you know, that's what makes this, cycle interesting, exciting. And this is America. You know, shit happens, and you got to just roll with it. That's essentially.
I know. But that's what I'm saying. I mean,
let's talk about Biden's legacy.
Yeah.
And I would say that I agree 100% with you that the party, if they wanted to go down this path, they should not have waited until the last minute. But I think Biden still will be hailed as a transformational president from a healthcare perspective. Remember, he was VP when Obamacare passed. It was very unpopular then. It is quite popular now.
Yeah.
It is under President Biden that Medicare has gotten the chance to negotiate drug prices, something that European countries have long done and we've shied away from. Now, who knows what's going to happen? It's in the courts right now. I think round one, pharma lost. Who knows what will happen when it goes to the Supreme Court? But the idea of we should, make drugs more affordable. We cap insulin at 35. I think all those things are things that he's going to be remembered for. But the economy is an issue. Still is an issue for a lot of people. I don't know what your take is on that.
Here's the thing. Okay, there's certain things to me. Again, I'm a business guy. I'm a finance guy. And during campaigning, each president or the competitor attacks the other for certain things. And to me, economy is a loose one to attack. Okay, there's certain powers the president has. But let's just be honest. Like, Powell has more power than the president does, right? Fed. So I think, look, if you go study finance, and look, there's peaks and valleys to the economies, right? Now, certain factors obviously push economies up and down, right? .com collapse, real estate collapse, all those sorts of things. Got it, totally understand. So I think it's interesting when presidents or competitors take advantage or attack economy just flat out, right? And it's like, so let's just take this for example, right? So pandemic, for example, Trump came in with, Trump was there when pandemic happened, right? So he's sitting there saying, I did a great job or whatever. And then Biden comes in and says, no, you did a poor job. And guess what? Pandemic ended on my watch. So what? Should he claim that he won wrapped up pandemic? Like medicine was already being manufactured, everything, right? No. So these things, but they'll go ahead and take these claims, right?
Yeah.
So then same thing, like it's almost like Trump is like, hey, I had an awesome economy, I handed off to Biden, and then it went down. Dude, like again, it's not you, it's everything else that was happening. Pandemic is the one that caused the economy to come down. So how are you going to sit there and say Biden did this?
Yeah.
Biden's now responsible for pandemic?
No, he's not responsible for the pandemic, and you're absolutely right. Trump is the one under whom the vaccines got going, although God knows why. I will never understand why he didn't promote the vaccines more, so less people would have died. But, there are a lot of economists who also believe that the financial incentives provided by Biden to deal with the pandemic resulted in the inflation. I don't know that you can sort of get away from that.
Yeah, so exactly. So maybe, yes. So some of those what do you call it, presidential executive orders, right? So some of those that were related to it where maybe he went a little too far. Right? Maybe did you need all of them? Maybe you just needed a couple of them. You didn't need all of them, right? Okay, got it. But here's the thing, right? So let's just say now you saw what's happening. Again, actually, we're recording this today. More economic data just presented that's showing that, you know what, Fed is leaning heavily towards a rate cut in September. And then guess what? Another one's probably going to happen in November, right? So now again, if you're going to start fixing inflation, let's just say Trump comes into office and he's going to be like, yo, I fixed it. No, bro. What, now you gonna claim that? But that was my whole point. Is that I understand that a part of it has to do with the presidents, but you can't put it all on them, and you can't take all credit. You can't take all blame. You can't take all credit.
True.
So even the public who's evaluating their candidates, you can't just sit there and be like, Biden just sucks for the economy and Trump is amazing. Yeah. Nah, there's powers to be that have nothing to do with these two guys.
True. And I don't disagree with that at all.
That was my comment. But Biden, outside of that, for not just his presidential success, okay, the man is a lifelong politician, and he's done an amazing job of serving his country in politics.
Absolutely.
Especially international affairs and other areas. Yep. So the man should be applauded. I mean, he is fighting for this country to the last minute. I don't care what political views you have and what his mental condition is and all that stuff. So, I mean, I do applaud him. Like that, he's done it the right way. He's done it the hard way.
So we can't talk about the last 2 weeks without talking about the Republican vice presidential
JD
nominee, JD Vance. I loved his book, Hillbilly Elegy. I mean, I'm an immigrant to the U.S. Yeah. After I came here and I went to do journalism, I had a stint in Indiana where I covered the United Auto Workers. So, you know, the workers at the General Motors factory, the Ford factory and all of that. And I saw very closely how they felt the American dream was slipping away.
Right.
And you know, the parents had been able to the parents had been able to have a middle-class existence, and they were not sure that their kids who worked in the factory would have that same existence. So I found that book really fascinating. I was someone living in parts of the Midwest, but mostly in cities, didn't have a great access or understanding as to what motivated folks in the Midwest who may not have the same experience that I did. And so I found that book really interesting. But then his comments that have created a firestorm, you know, makes me think, I don't know what I think about him anymore. I wanted to read out loud the comments. We've heard it over and over, but I wanted to read it out in full. Again, this was an interview that JD did with Tucker Carlson back in 2021.
Good old Tucker.
Good old Tucker. So here's what JD said. We are effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't have a direct stake in it? Now, obviously, everyone pounced on the childless lady, you know, cat lady comment. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to go into it. It is disrespectful, but let's move on from that. Now, he came about and clarified comments. He spoke with Megyn Kelly, and this is what he said. Again, I'm quoting him directly, but not in full. So he said, it is not a criticism of people who don't have children. Democrats in the past 5 to 10 years, Megyn, they have become anti-family. It's built into their policy. It's built into the way they talk about parents and children. And I think it's time to call that out. He also jokingly apologized to cats. Now, I think this part is reasonable, that Republicans and Democrats have different views of what family should be and what the relationship should be between parents and children, and it has come out in types of books that are being read in terms of policies regarding transgender children and things like that. And I think those are perfectly reasonable debates to be had. Good people on both sides will have different viewpoints. My real problem is his comment on how people without children have no stake in the country. He's promoting a kind of selfish patriotism, which I find, you know, absolutely abhorrent. Because, you know, what about the millions of people that are single or have chosen not to have kids, who are volunteering, who are protesting, who are marching, who's at the local senior living center, who's cleaning up parks and beaches, just because they don't have any children, they don't care about. In fact, I would flip the script and say that these people who don't have any children and are trying to change lives for the better as they feel it, they are the most patriotic, because they are doing it to help themselves and people around them, not necessarily their own children. So even more than the childless cat ladies, I really found it a breathtakingly idiotic comment to say that people without kids have no stake in America or its future. And he's such a seriously smart guy.
Yeah. So again, remind me, whose VP candidate is he? Oh yeah, Trump. That's right. I mean, come on. Like, let's take a page out of, like, you know, let's say something shocking. Let's give material to people to talk about.
No, he believes this.
No,
because he has talked about it. He's not. I don't think he's saying it for effect. I think he really believes in it.
I'm not saying that he's not saying it for effect.
Yeah.
But it's also just good to sort of have something that's sort of polarizing like this, right? So to say.
I don't know. I think this is gonna bite him. Pretty badly.
I hope it does. I hope he gets a cat bite. Right? Is that a certain thing, right? JD? Cat bite? No? Okay, I don't know.
We don't want anyone coming to any kind of harm. Let me be clear.
Hey, it's not me. The cats might attack him, okay? But you know what? This is the same like, let's just go back to the same narrative again now, right? So this whole cat lady thing, people who don't have kids, but then again, he was going after and talking about primarily women who don't have, he said women, cat ladies, right? Now he did put Pete in there, but my point is he was talking about the women in there.
People who don't have biological children.
But here we go again, right? Like now you're going to attack women because that don't have their own biological kids, right? So again, we're coming around to the same thing. It's like it's the women's health rights. It's it's abortion. It's birth control. And now let's just talk about, well, yeah, you're not fit to, talk about family values because, yeah, you're raising somebody else's kids. You don't have any of your own. Like, are you
don't have any at all.
Are you serious? So this is what we're talking about. So it's kind of like this, okay? By the way, do you have a pen I can borrow?
Right now?
Yeah. Do you have a pen?
No, I don't.
Okay. That's okay. You know why? Because I would be borrowing your pen. And I'm not allowed to write with that because it's not my pen, right? I'm borrowing it from you.
Oh, geez. What kind of analogy is that, Samir?
Hey, you know what? I had to think of something on the spot.
Oh,
okay?
my God.
But you have biological kids. Okay, you know what? You're allowed to talk. But nah, your kids are stepkids. You ain't allowed to talk. I mean, I think it's completely ridiculous. I can't even defend or attack this position because I think it is such a horrendous comment. Like, it
is, like I said, it's breathtakingly idiotic coming from a seriously smart person, and I don't know what to say. I feel like whatever inroads Trump was making with women is seriously going to be hurt by replaying of these comments, and Democrats are going to be playing this,
of course,
around the clock, and there is no effective answer because you can easily say, sorry, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have said that, but of course that is not their mojo. He really believes in it, so it's very hard to walk back comments. Now, having said that, Kamala Harris has also a ton of positions that she has shifted on dramatically, and she will have to answer for those, but I don't know, offending a wide swath of people, and I think there will be men that will be equally offended.
I'm like pissed off too. I wonder what his Indian wife thinks about this. I'd love to stick a mic in her face and say, "Hey, why don't you go ahead and explain what your husband was saying?"
It was love, she said, right?
Love?
It's. I'm sure it's it's hard for
love
any candidate.
Love sees no color, boundaries, and stupidity?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but I just, look, I mean, they clearly have a great relationship. She's been with him a really long time. They have kids together. They're invested
They're biological kids together.
And she should have the freedom to be with whoever she wants. We don't know what she thinks, and she's not running. So frankly, it doesn't matter what she thinks about this particular issue. The spotlight is on her husband, as it should be, and the spotlight is on Kamala Harris, and whoever she picks. Hopefully, we will know that in the next couple of weeks.
Or when she gets picked, and then who she picks, right? So isn't that...
Right. You're right. We are crowning her VP, not VP, presidential nominee for the Democratic Party, but she hasn't received the votes yet. Yeah. She's on the path. So this heavy episode is done. I don't know that we'll talk a lot about politics. This took a lot out of us. It is a risk because I'm a journalist, and yet I have opinions, and so I'll be honest and say that I do have opinions. That doesn't mean I consider the opposing point of view hateful or people who believe in that to be horrible people. It's a different perspective, and I hope that you prefer transparency over some fake objectivity that some journalists actually do have and I don't. So with that, Samir, we're going to close up the August episode, and keep writing to us if you hate what you saw or you loved what you saw. Write to us at debunked@medcitynews.com, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.